alive.
Okay, and Dr. Freeman,
Yes.
can you tell me, you said that Barbara Jordan was, you would consider her to be your I guess.
Well, her name is mentioned most.
Okay.
When I'm encountered Barbara Jordan, yeah. So.
Now you recommended that she didn't go to Harvard. Why?
Well, no, that's not quite accurate. One of the reports says that she was denied admission to Harvard, which is the imaginative use of a situation which really did not exist, because I took Barbara to Boston University along with Otis King to debate against Boston University. At the time, another brother of mine, Charles, was editor of the Law Review at Boston University. And my brother took her around Boston University. And following that experience, he said to me, Tom, that's where I want to go for my law school training. So far as I know, she never applied to Harvard.
Well, the way the story goes, in the book by Mary Beth Rogers, which is Barbara Jordan, American Hero, Mary Beth says that Barbara wanted to go to Harvard, that she recommended that she didn't because she told her, quote unquote, in the book that no student of TSU ever made it at Harvard.
I'm indicating that that's fanciful use of some interpretation. I'm giving you the facts that as I know them. I have no knowledge of discussing Harvard with Barbara. I discussed Boston University because of her experience with Boston University.
Yeah, she worked really, really hard at Boston University. Now, while she was there, were you and her in contact?
Yes, we were in contact.
Because I know in the book it said that she would she burned a midnight oil.
Oh, well, most of us have to do that to achieve. Yes. You just jump up there, you know.
What do you think? What do you think it was that set her apart? Was it her combination of dedication and brains and desire? Because I've heard that she just had the most imposing aura when you were around her. That it was just so powerful. It just radiated power. You know.
But now you have said it all. I need to say no more. Yeah, it's a combination of all of those, plus her ability to convince through the strength of her voice.
Right.
So when you heard Barbara, you have to stop and listen. She had a way of enveloping you and bringing you into by her booming voice.
That's right. Just some of the words that I've heard say, like, listen to her say the word de Tocqueville, you know, de Tocqueville, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Just grabs you right there.
Certainly,
And then she gave the speech, I suppose, pretty much that sealed the fate of President Nixon as far as getting impeached.
Well, I wouldn't describe it quite as you described it. I would say that it was a significant presentation that called the attention of the nation to a condition about which something had to be done. And when she said, I will not sit by and watch the diminution of the Constitution, she meant just that.
Yeah.
And those who were listening became concerned and in some instances convinced that she was accurate in her evaluation.
Yeah, so, and she was basically a what you would call a constitutional lawyer.
Oh yes.
Right? Okay, and then now her impact in Houston, she had done a lot of activist things here, especially in the black community that a lot of people just don't know about. But I know some of them had to do with education, defending students, trying to make things better off for them, as well as changes in the curriculum that they would like to implement here in Texas that basically degrade the ideology that civil rights was the proper thing to do, plus that Martin Luther King himself may have been a subversive to tear down his legacy, and then to just flat out change things in the curriculum to basically give black students the idea that they don't really need any more than what they have. They don't need to. That basically, even at its core, that maybe slavery may have even been their fault, just because they're black. And I know that those things are intended to be implemented in some ways in the curriculum throughout Texas, but I guess Barbara knew that too, right?
Yes.
And she, in what ways did she fight against those things?
I don't recall any specific action that she took other than participation in the court decisions and arguing before the court, and then being a part of the state legislature in the formulation of statute. I don't recall any specific action.
But you consider her a very good attorney, right?
Very good attorney, yes.
And I guess the crux of being an attorney would be being a great debater, right?
Well, I wouldn't say that being a good debater, you are therefore a good lawyer. Okay. I would say that a good lawyer is a good debater. And a good debater is skillful in strengthening his own argument, as well as finding legitimacy in criticism of the opponent's argument by showing some inconsistencies in that argument. A good lawyer, of course, is out to win his case. And the best lawyers win their cases through factual documentation. Now, there are lawyers who use tricks of the trade. But I think that Barbara was skillful enough in her intellectual prowess so that she didn't have to resort to any of the tricks of the trade, so that she could defend a client on the basis of the facts.
And she pretty much herself helped Jimmy Carter be elected to president in 1976 because she campaigned here in Texas for him.
Yes.
And he won Texas, and then pretty much that sealed the deal to become president. Now, did he reciprocate the favor?
I am not so sure. I have read that she was disappointed because he did not appoint her he did not appoint her in any official capacity. I've read that. I did not discuss it with Barbara. She did not send to me, Tom, I'm disappointed with Jimmy Carter because he didn't do that.
Because the scuttle is, there's two schools of scuttle that I've heard. One is that he offered her Attorney General. He offered her ambassador position, and he offered her HUD director. So I've heard all three of these things. Now, but it wouldn't make sense to me that he really offered her the office of Attorney General, because she would have took that, because she's a constitutional lawyer. So I don't believe it. But it's in the book by Mary Beth Rogers. But now you've already exposed one discrepancy in her book.
Yeah, sure.
So this is a discrepancy that I thought about. I just couldn't come to terms with that, because it doesn't make sense to me that Barbara Jordan would not be the Attorney General of the United States if Jimmy Carter offered her that. I can't see her saying no. So he did, it must have been that he didn't offer it to her. You see. Which that would have been her stature of a person. But I could see maybe offering her HUD director. I could see her maybe even offering her an ambassador position. So it sounds to me like that what happened was Jimmy Carter screwed her around. That's what it sounds like to me. So, I could be wrong, but now she taught at the school at UT, University of Texas, Lyndon Baines Johnson School, and her and President Johnson were really good friends, right?
Oh yes. In fact, he was her sponsor, really, from, I don't mean in terms of money and things, but he sort of took her under his wing and provided opportunities for her to be exposed, so that, because she could make an impression. So he was a good friend of hers, yes.
And he also saw her as a political ally as well.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, because I've seen pictures of them where you can just see it in both their eyes.
Yes.
Now, there's this movie that just came out called Selma. Are you familiar with that movie?
No, I'm not.
It just came out. It's got. It's about the events that happened down in Selma with the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King, and stuff like that. And in this movie, they make strong overtones that Lyndon Johnson was a racist. Now, I've read one of the books by Robert Caro, and I've watched all the documentaries by Robert Caro. And it took Robert Caro 14 years to write 4 books about Lyndon Johnson. And in his book, I think he's objective as he could possibly be. But as an example, people say, well, Johnson had to have something to do with Kennedy being killed, and I think Carroll pretty much solidified the fact that that's not possible. And but I think he also solidified the fact, to me, in my mind, that Lyndon Johnson was not a racist. How do you feel about that?
The fact that he took leadership in initiating legislation that made for greater participation in government by blacks suggests that he was not a racist, but that he was a victim of his society, and that he was thinking like his society around him thought, but who had the courage to move away from what his society thought and establish support for a new direction. For it is my conviction that all of the efforts of Martin Luther King and the Southern Christian Conference would have been naught without the political and moral support of a cadre of minds like Lyndon B. Johnson, who recognized the wisdom in the insistence on the part of Martin Luther King that America must be made accountable for its treatment of its minorities, and a change must take place. Without that combination, it seems to me it would have been just motion. But it was more than motion because there was an agency ready to take the impact and move it in a direction that it would be solidified. But you see, if the law had not been passed, all this talk was just talk.
Yeah.
But the Civil Rights Act was there. And Martin Luther King and others didn't write the Civil Rights Act.
Yeah.
The Congress of the United States did.
Right.
And that would not have been possible without the kind of person that Lyndon B. Johnson was.
Yeah.
And as a racist, he would have been hesitant to take the leadership role.
Yeah, because I noticed that, from what I understand, is that him and Kennedy, both Kennedy brothers and him, well, Kennedy's entire family, pretty much they fought like cats and dogs between each other. They didn't really like each other. Even when Johnson would be invited to the Kennedy compound for dinner, you know, he would be like, you sit over here in the corner, here's your food. Yeah. You know, shut up. You know what I mean? But they didn't get along. However, the first thing that Johnson did when he was became president, he stood up in the Congress in front of all the Southern Democrats, pretty much ran the country and told them, the first thing that we're going to do is pass tax legislation. Yeah. And he had that war. So now when Barbara taught at, because she has a huge, beautiful statue over there too at Texas University, UT Austin. When she taught there at his school, Lyndon Johnson School, what did she teach?
I think she taught in the Department of Ethics, professional ethics. It was ethics of leadership or something. It was the field of ethical leadership, yes. Okay. And I understand her classes were run over. In fact, they had to line up every year, write signed for her course.
But you consider her to be your most sterling quote unquote project, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. And she's a shining light for the world.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we're going to pretty much close right now.
All right. And we really I don't know whether there are any pictures in my office of Barbara that you may want to. You did? Okay.
More.
Okay. All right.
We really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. To me, I feel like I'm talking to Martin Luther King. So, you know, that's what you are for me, a hero. Very, very excited, very grateful.
There's one thing, this is just an aside. My brother Paul is a symphonic conductor, and he's had Barbara narrate one of his numbers, and I've been there and I've introduced Barbara. And Barbara said at the last time, she even said this publicly, that one thing that she liked about performing for Paul is that he had Tom to introduce me. And she said, I always like for him to introduce me because he makes me feel as though I'm somebody.
Yeah, and she's a really great singer too, wasn't she?
Yeah. And the sisters, yes. Yeah.
Was she artistic in any other ways besides singing?
Not that I know of. She was a good whist player. She would play with the boys.